This is Real Talk, the Customer Insights Show with Jenn Vogel. Join Jenn and her guests for this live discussion around topics that will help you understand your customers better. Also available on podcast channels. This live stream is presented to you by Voxpopme, the leader in video research. Here's today's live conversation.
Hello, insights professionals, marketers, and everyone who wants to understand their customers better. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Real Talk, the Customer Insights Show. We're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and the podcast version will be available on podcast channels later this week. If you have any questions or want to join the conversation, please feel free to share in the comments. You can also leave us a voicemail at the link on screen and in the show notes. We might feature your message on a future show. Now, on all of our episodes, we talk about understanding our customers, whether that's through centralized data, customer-led strategies, or ownership of customer insights. And today I want to dive into how market research technology can help us understand our customers and create great experiences for them. So to dive into that topic, I'm joined by Rick Kelly, Chief Product Officer at Fuel Cycle. Fuel Cycle is one of Voxpopme's longest, oldest partners, so thrilled to have him on today. Fuel Cycle is a cloud-based experience management platform for supercharging the relationship between humans and brands through community, panel, progressive profiling, and a partnership exchange of 30-plus endpoint solutions. Fuel Cycle offers an all-in-one ecosystem that combines quantitative and qualitative data to power real-time business decisions. Welcome to today's episode, Rick.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I finally made it. I feel like I finally made it now.
You have arrived. This is the peak of your career.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here. I made it on Real Talk with Jenn Vogel. It's been a lifetime aspiration, and thanks for the kind introduction too.
Well, really, really excited to have this chat with you today. And, one question that we ask all of our guests is just from your experience, how has the role of customer insights evolved in companies in the last year?
Yeah, what's interesting is that I think the realization that customer insights is essential has become more and more apparent. I mean, speaking from our own experience, we can see product analytics data from like our platform usage start to take off about the second week of March in 2020. From there, just kind of accelerates and kind of keeps growing throughout the year, which obviously is a great thing for us. But for companies, that just means that they're realizing more and more that they need to tap into customer preferences, evolving, kind of purchase preferences, product preferences, delivery models, more than they ever did before.
I think you're so right about that. I when we used to go to conferences, that was a topic often in the talks that were happening of like, how can insights get a seat at the table and how can you elevate your importance in the company? And it feels like in the last year that all of a sudden the insights department was getting a lot more questions like, hey, we don't understand what's going on with people anymore. Everything's changed. We need you more than we ever realized we did. And that's a really great thing for the insights industry.
Yeah. What's interesting is that there's some research, I'm sure some people have seen it, from Boston Consulting Group and KBR Consulting from probably 2016, 2017, where they ask, C-level leaders about like their prioritization of customer insights and CMI functions. And, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies overwhelmingly say customer insights is a huge priority for them. But less than 20% actually said that they're really happy with customer insights. And so I think that it's been incumbent on, insights professionals to change the delivery model for insights for some time. It's a huge priority. It hasn't always been delivered the way that it ought to. And I think the past 12 months or so have definitely accelerated the shift towards kind of more responsive research.
Yeah, that's super interesting. You're gonna have to send me those studies. I'm always interested in those disconnects that happen. That when we all have things that we say are important, and when we're not getting our needs met internally or externally, it's fascinating to me. So you'll have to send those over. So maybe just give us a quick overview of Fuel Cycle and the problem that you guys solve for your customers.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the problem, and I'll kind of like jump into like the solution. So first of all, like we absolutely believe that market research is a critical function for enterprises to succeed. So past 10, 12 years, even pre-pandemic, we lived in a world of accelerating change where like there's new social media outlets, there's new product channels, there's a huge amount of venture money flowing into say like fintech and things like that, which means that there's more options for customers or consumers in general. They're more empowered to have transparency into business practices, to product quality, things like that, which means that they have choice, and it's been really disruptive to a lot of like legacy organizations, and yet. So during this time when customer purchase preferences and product preferences have gone through massive amounts of change, and obviously the past like 12 months have been emblematic of that, but it's not like the last 12 months, a cap on the last decade or so. It's been interesting because the market research industry has grown at like an average of like 1%. So for an industry that says that they are the conduit of customer consumer opinion to grow so slowly during like that time of accelerating change doesn't make any sense, which means that market research really hasn't been doing the job that it needs to do. It needs to be more responsive, more flexible, and deliver much at a much faster scale or pace than it had before. And so for Fuel Cycle, what we do is provide what we call the market research cloud. And we really have our background, and a lot of people know us for and think it's a fantastic tool. But the market research cloud is a cohesive platform that allows our customers to maintain constant connection to their customers, prospects, and users through an array of solutions that allows them to accelerate decision making with automated research, qualitative connections, and user-friendly solutions that kind of complete like this market research cloud solution. So I mentioned earlier that we have a bunch of product integrations, including with Voxpopme, which is awesome, but allows us to a cohesive solution to our customers to really help accelerate research and increase the flexibility that enterprises have to collect data from like their core constituent audiences.
Wonderful. So, I mean, it's so interesting what you say about the market research industry growing about 1% in that time period where customers are more savvy and are making, smarter decisions. That is really interesting to me. And I'm wondering, like, what's your opinion on why that is? Like, we have had these conversations for years about the democratization of research and, research being conducted outside of the insights groups in companies. Like, is that part of it? Like, why is the, aside from us needing to be more agile or be more responsive, as you say, like what's driving that lag?
Yeah. So, these are hypotheses, but really like it's, you see like the typical kind of agency-led model, and there's so many smart, like wonderful people that work at agencies, and they do wonderful things and have a place in the world. But, if I think about my own role as a product manager, product owner, is if I need feedback from customers, I can't wait 4 weeks, 6 weeks for a survey, a set of focus groups to get done and get kind of trickle back to me. I need to know something right away so we can prioritize something in the development process. And the same is true for any type of business stakeholder. So ad campaigns, marketing campaigns, you might have big tentpole strategies, but you also have to be super responsive to changes in the marketplace. And you think about like smaller kind of direct to consumer type companies, they're now equipped with the tools to innovate on product, on go-to-market strategy just as faster than enterprises are. And so really the general thesis is that market research needs to accelerate timelines and get feedback to stakeholders in a much more user-friendly format than it does today.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. So how do you see the customer insights evolving?
Yeah, well, you think about it, is that in the traditional market research model, I don't think goes away. I think it shifts in general. So inside an organization, you typically, and this is like very, I'm generalizing, and obviously it varies, but you typically have a market research team or a department or something that sits underneath some other department, and then they serve a bunch of other stakeholders, whether it's in product management, it's in branding, it's in marketing, it's in user experience, whatever it might be. And they really are kind of centralized group for everybody else to run research through. And there's absolutely a place for that when you need really high end, like sophisticated research. You need big, tentpole research and understanding of your constituent audiences. But more and more, I think we're going to see insights move to the edge, meaning the insights processes are moving to the hands of decision makers, meaning it's sitting in the hand of a UX designer, or sitting in the hands of a product manager or a marketing associate or whomever it is, where they can kind of push button, get results on their own using validated methodologies without having to go through like the labyrinth of kind of market research processes overall.
Yeah, and that is an opportunity, in my opinion, to either it's either an opportunity for the insights department to really like have their stake in the ground of where they do provide value, or it's a big threat to the industry. And I've seen, I just was hearing the other day about a marketing team at a large organization that they don't have an insights department. The marketing team runs all of their customer research, and they don't intend to build a customer insights team. They feel like they're getting what they need within the marketing team. And, I think that there is so much value, as you say, about what the insights team can provide and how that's different from what a marketing or a user experience person or a product person can do on their own. But we need to prove that value, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And again, I think I'm very bullish on the long-term prospects for market researchers, and they should view it as opportunities rather than as a threat to like careers or place in the organization. And really, it's an opportunity to level up the approach. Moving from task-based to strategic advisors to stakeholders, and putting tools in their hands, I think is going to be a big opportunity for them in the near future.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because I want to get into market research technology and, really dig into like how has MR Tech played a role in all of this evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think, when we cited those numbers earlier about the growth rate of the market research industry, we're talking about like the traditional market research industry. Obviously, there's huge growth outside of it. When we look at any of like the platforms, whether it's SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, Medallia. I don't want to offend anybody by not mentioning your platform. They're all special, cool technologies. But really, like you see, like the pace of acceleration and the ability for somebody who is a stakeholder, or traditionally not sitting in that insights function, it gives them the ability to access new tools for decision making, and obviously solutions like Fuel Cycle, Voxpopme, or really accelerate that qualitative component too, and actually make it much easier and reduce the friction in doing that, right? And when we think about like our technology-led approach, what we find is that, and we see this outside the research industry, right? When the user experience is positive and there's like good reinforcement loops, you do more, you share more. So you get good reinforcement for posting a photo on Instagram, you're going to share more, interact more, things like that. And so as we lower the barriers to user experience or improve like the quality of user experience, we see a lot of opportunity for more research to be done. Unfortunately, that's a really high hill to climb, because there's a lot of things that a lot of data processing, data cleaning, those types of things that need to be ironed out really well to make a platform that's going to be like usable for everyone.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Also, I was listening in on a conversation earlier today about, really like what everybody wants is that one platform that is going to have all of the all of the different methodologies or all the different tech that they want integrated into one. And, I've seen companies do this very well, through partnerships. And so I want to hear your thoughts on that. But I've also seen it done very poorly where, companies try to be everything to everyone and do it all sort of okay, as opposed to really specializing. So yeah, would love to hear your take on that and, on bringing all those pieces of technology together.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's obviously something that I'm super passionate about, that we've done a lot of. And when you talk about companies that have tried to do everything, technology companies or whomever, like it takes a special amount of focus to do what you're really, really good at. And, we look at like analogies that we use outside the market research space is that you have these platforms and in these exchanges, Salesforce App Exchange, Marketo, Adobe, they have their App Exchange, Medallia has theirs, Qualtrics has theirs. They all have like these different integration platforms. And so building out platforms that allow us to connect data seamlessly, it is important. And it allows us to deliver more value to customers, to our partners, and everything else too. Famously, the first big developers of platforms back, say 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it's Microsoft. And where an ecosystem had to deliver, like no more than like a quarter of the value, or a platform could take no more than a quarter of the value provided to its ecosystem. And that's something that we think about too, is we're delivering value to our partner network, right? In terms of revenue, stickiness, decreased churn, like all those types of things. But more importantly, we're delivering a ton of value to our customers as well. And we're able to do that not by trying to, boil the ocean and do everything ourselves. We have all these different tools in a pretty seamless manner.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And, as these different pieces of research tech are in the hands of different departments and different people, like having like everybody being on the same page, hey, this is where we're centralizing everything, is crucial. Because I was shocked. I want to say a year or two ago, I was talking to someone who had done some research within our industry and found that on average, I think it was companies had like 90 different pieces of tech reach. So, and that's, using competing technologies across different departments and, everything kind of living all in different places. Like I can only imagine the repetition of the research and the issues that come from having that kind of setup. So, it's not only the technology all working together, but like getting all that buy-in, like, hey, we're all on the same page. This is what we're going to be using. And all of the data is in the same place. Yeah.
So you can make like better use of the data, right? When it's connected together. But the other thing too, is you think about it from a CIO level, they're trying to reduce the number of places where customer data is stored or the risks in general. Right, especially with all the privacy laws that are coming online, that we expect to see more of those in the future, and kind of stricter control from consumers around like their own personal data. And so it's trying to reduce the number of surface areas where data is stored, especially PII and private health information, feels like a really important thing for enterprises.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, data privacy is such a crucial thing. Always should have been, but especially now, it's getting more and more important, and definitely something people need to be conscious of. So, I guess what are some of the challenges and opportunities of marrying different methodologies, qualitative, quantitative, different data sources when it comes to the research tech that people are using?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring this up. I think there are some real challenges in terms of like the way people have traditionally done research isn't to marry things like natively together, right? So it's a process change. And also when you're overwhelmed with data, like truthfully, it's amazing because no organization is short of columns of data, right? There's so much of it. And really the question becomes, how do you make use of it? And that's where machine learning tools come in. But how do you learn about machine learning tools? How do you evaluate? How do you remove kind of black box algorithms and make things accessible is really key. And so there's a lot of things that there are traditional research processes. Think about data processing stuff and like use of traditional crosstabs and things like that don't make sense in a data abundant environment, just because it becomes increasingly challenging to analyze the data at scale. If you're taking, I think back to, early days in the research industry, which wasn't that long ago, but still long enough ago that I was still faxing, crosstabs until like 8 p.m. at some point, right? So maybe that's a metaphor for like the research industry just being a little bit behind. But you know who you are if you received a fax from me. It's like one of like 3 people. Essentially we limited the number of banner points, the number of data cuts that you have, largely because there's limits to human scale and the ability to comb through enough data. And, for us, I see a future where those limits are removed, where we can look at everything, right? And don't have to limit like the opportunities for learning and the types of information that we're using for scale. So it's a lot of a process change. It's a lot of upcoming education for insights practitioners. What I expect to happen is that the decision makers on the periphery that aren't traditional researchers are going to adapt new ways of conducting data analysis much faster than traditional practitioners, largely just because it's new and there's preconceived notions about how to do things.
Yeah, and our industry isn't historically known for moving quickly or adapting quickly to change.
Fortunately, I haven't sent a fax with crosstabs on them in about 10 years, but
But still, 10 years is not that long ago. The fact that I was trying not to laugh like out loud and totally screw up the audio on this live stream.
No, right, but that's like that was the state things are moving at, right?
Yeah,
and it is what it is. So big step change, and really I think the opportunities for integrating quant and qual are really significant. There's no reason that qualitative research, once it's been processed, can't be treated as structured data. So we do things today where we take we're using machine learning APIs to analyze text and photos and all those things like many others do. But then you can use that data and use those essentially as like a banner point to cut your data by, or as like a stub or a row of your data to analyze by. And so you can look for differences in like unstructured and structured. And I think there's really significant opportunity there. We ask survey questions because we're trying to structure unstructured thoughts, right? And, the better use we can make of video and of photos and text and natural like approaches to research, I think the higher fidelity research we'll have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually think back to what we were talking about before, like this is where the insights function can really shine. If we can get that right. Like you're totally right. There is no shortage of data right now. And there's mountains of it, more than anyone ever had access to before. Like survey data aside, all the behavioral data, all the social data, it's just like data overload. And if we can get it right, like how do you marry all of that together? The primary research, the secondary research, any passive data that you're collecting, and turn that into, a mountain of data is not useful on its own. It's useful when you can summarize some kind of new insight in one sentence to say, this is what this means for our business, for our customers, and what we can do to better serve them, or whatever it might be, whatever decision you're trying to make. And being able to distill those mountains of data into that one key finding that nobody else knew before, that is where insights can really shine.
Oh yeah, and then all of a sudden, because we have new processing capabilities, the ability to actually turn insights into action is it increases, right? And so the ability to take something and then cause an action in a development workflow or an ad testing or whatever it might be, I think it's really significant and it's going to be really important. And so you have less handing around or passing around PowerPoint presentations, right? And more connections to tools that help make decisions for organizations.
Yeah, and I bet that's the difference of those 20% of CEOs who said they were getting what they needed from insights. It's like, has there been did we make a decision that made a big impact on our business and on our customers? Like, totally. I bet that's the difference.
Yeah. And it's really like I think the way that I think about it is, how do we reduce the latency between like a business question and an action, right? So ideally, like, there's no latency, there's nothing there because you already have existing data. But when you need to add in data, how do you make that not take 6 weeks or 6 days? How do you make it 6 hours or 6 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. And still be accurate.
And still be accurate, of course.
That's the key. We can get stuff fast.
That's right. I can take a lot of surveys. I've taken a lot of surveys in my day, so I can get through them pretty quickly.
Totally. So in terms of companies that are trying to get started, like using better market research tech, or, leverage the tech that they have better, like, what would you suggest in, how these companies are improving those processes to make better use of that technology?
Yeah. So I think a good place to start, and I have no magic that comes from, being at Fuel Cycle or something like that. But I think mapping the North Star and identifying the ideal state is definitely one way to get going. So map the ideal state. What does insights look the most optimal function for your organization? Mm-hmm. And then you move into, okay, so what's achievable over the next 2 years, the next year, the next 6 months, the next week? And you start moving that forward. And so you likely have like research technology, make sure you understand capabilities, really what to do. But that's definitely where I'd start, is identify the North Star and then work backward from there.
Yeah, that's good advice. It's just in my own role, in my own career, like, managing the long term with the short term is always the challenge, right? Like, what can you do right now that's going to have an impact right now? And what do you need to do to work towards something that you might not see the fruits of for a couple of years? Like,
and so, so it's like investing in partners that have a vision for the future too, right? So if you're future-proofing, you're a part that continually invests in technology, that has a release cadence, and that is working to make their solutions better all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think they're API forward, they're willing to integrate with existing business systems, and that ends up reaping dividends down the line. We don't have to rip and replace new solutions all the time.
Yeah, totally. And I think too, the technology companies that are in the space now that are doing things right are really collaborating with and co-creating with their users. Yeah. In addition to leading, there's a balance of like listening to customer feedback and implementing that, and also leading and saying, this is what you need, this is what's going to make your work better. And so it's like the research technology companies out there need to be good at customer research in the same way that the brands are, kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of processes to, there came a day when I started at Fuel Cycle, I probably knew every customer, I knew their dog's name, I knew what their kids liked for breakfast, right? Because we had a smaller team. And it eventually got to a scale where, I didn't just intuitively know everything. And that required that we invest in understanding the customer and making sure that people have a responsibility for knowing what customers need. So, when we started rolling out new products and solutions, like we're doing usability studies, we're using our focus group solutions to get stuff done, to have customer interviews, which is always fun when you use your own focus group technology to run a focus group on your focus group technology. It's a very meta experience, right? But then also like using traditional like insights methods. So feature prioritization really is like in many ways, like we're using Kana models to identify, what's going to make a difference for us in the long run. Some pricing methodologies, all those things to make sure that we are the phrase "eating our own dog food," right? But like essentially, like we need to make sure that we're practicing what we preach.
Yeah, totally. And as you say, like, even it's not just when you scale your customers, but as you're scaling your teams, like you intuitively knowing your customers doesn't help scale to the team that you're building, and like helping with that transparency across the team, making sure everybody understands who the customer is and what their needs are is so crucial.
Yeah, most definitely. So documenting and sharing. We go through the same process that our clients go through, I think, in terms of like trying to share personas, get information out, turn insights into action. And so I definitely sympathize with insights professionals. I feel like we are our own customer too.
It's so true. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a challenge too, because we do, I'm with you. Like, I understand the challenges that we go through of, when do you run this type of study or that type of study, or what's the question that needs to be answered? And, there's always a drive to like sneak in a question that's unrelated to the problem you're trying to solve. Like, it's hard. It's customer insights are not easy.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've had more than one idea for our roadmap and our overall strategy come from our own experience of operating insights.
Yeah, totally. Same here. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like I said, life goal achieved.
Life goal achieved. I'm so glad I could help you get there. So thank you, everyone in the audience, for joining us. Please rate and review us on your favorite network. And don't forget to share our show with your friends and coworkers. In the next episode next week, I'll be joined by Bianca Pryor of BET. We will see you all.